What's up, Internet? It's your boy Corey from the Hardwood Herald. We are back with another episode of Nothing But Netflix on the Underdog Podcast Network. We have an awesome movie to do today. This is one of my favorite comedies and possibly one of my favorite basketball films. We are going to break down Matt Stone and Trey Parker's Baseketball with Larry Villains, our first return guest. Larry, what's going on?
What's going on, Corey?
Larry said that he will do any movie that I ask him to do. His only request is that he shotties Baseketball.
Yeah, it's the only one I wanted to do. The one that I was itching for. I love this goddamn movie. It's so good.
There's a lot to talk about in this film. So let's get started by reading the IMDb synopsis, as we always do. Two childhood friends are pro athletes of a national sport called basketball, a hybrid of baseball and basketball, and must deal with a greedy businessman scheming against their team. Feel like they leave a lot out there. However, is this a baseball movie, a basketball movie, or is it both? Or none?
I think it'd be more of a basketball movie. I mean, yeah, it has bases and use those to score and use some verbiage from baseball, but I mean, there's no baseball skill involved. It's all basketball skill. To hit a home run behind the meatballs doesn't mean anything to do with the bat or ball or pitcher. So you gotta go basketball.
Yeah, that's kind of my feeling too, which is why I feel comfortable doing it for the pod.
Nice.
Let's get into the movie a little bit.
So what about Nothing But Bat Flips is the new podcast we're working
on. There we go. You see how
baseball movies.
I like it. That would be pretty good. And maybe.
And we cover this again, and we argue that it's a baseball movie.
You see how we do this, people? Suckers, just complete suckers. Opening scene to add to maybe the baseball setting of this, we see Reggie Jackson, and it's a scene where Coop is at this game. He's at the famous Reggie Jackson game, and the opening sequence is all about the purity of sports. How sports started as one thing about this, just illustrious competition for the sake of team, and became, excessive celebrations, football dances, to the point that the NFL had to, started fining players for over celebrating, selfish athletes, selfish owners, teams moving, the Lakers going to LA when there aren't any lakes, the Jazz going to Utah where there is no music. It kind of just takes us on a journey to where we think it's going to kind of be this movie that's a little serious, and then they bring the jokes in. But at the heart of it, it is a movie about the purity of sport.
That's it. Is that the entire point of it is that everyone as a child loving sports, when you're sitting there practicing, free throws or ridiculous 3-point shots, in your driveway or something, you're not sitting there picturing what kind of shoe deal or contract you're going to sign or anything like that. You're picturing you're going to hit the buzzer beater to win the game. So at the purity of a child growing up, you love the game itself, and then money gets involved as you grow up, in politics of the sport and everything like that. So it's really the monetization that gets involved, where there's a way to make money in this, and that changes everything.
It really does. And you look back when you're a kid, and that's all you cared about, like you said. And in the scene, Coop says to Reamer, "One day I'm going to be a big sports star." Cut scene, Coop peeing in the bushes. "One day I'm going to open a big sports bar." And we're off. We're just off. And this is the South Park coming out.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's just, everyone has as a kid. I mean, I remember my guidance counselor when I was in school. She did like a one of those tests that personality tests to decide what kind of jobs that you could possibly fit you in the future. And what every kid, I'm going to say 70% of the guys all wrote down they wanted to be a professional athlete when they grow up.
Yeah.
And then she's like, "That's great. Unfortunately, nobody's a professional athlete from this school. Start worrying about something else." And that was real. That that hit real. So that's what it is. Everybody has that idea. They want to be a professional athlete or something like that growing up, and then all of a sudden, you're 30 or however old they are in the movie, still living off high school.
That is hilarious, and your guidance counselor definitely deserves an award.
It hurt. It hurt, but I feel like a lot of us, including myself, needed to hear
it. So Coop and Reamer show up to a party as the losers who haven't changed since high school. They're going around seeing all of their old high school compadres, and they just kind of realize how everybody's grown and they haven't, and they get that same dose of reality. So eventually, they're talking about leaving. We can go into, the scene in the girl's mom's bedroom if we want. That kind of becomes our first psych out after Reamer has a little scrummaging through the mom's drawer. But they eventually go in the backyard and are just shooting around and are like, what are we going to do with our lives? All of these people have moved on. And they're like, well, we're pretty good at basketball unless we have to move around in any capacity and do anything except for shoot. And it's at that point, as they're going through their existential crisis, where they're challenged to a 2-on-2 by these preppy dudes. And one of the guys is actually like the tall guy. His name's Keith Gibbs. He was, oddly enough, a 90s hoop movie regular. He appeared in Celtic Pride, Blue Chips, American History X, and The Air Up There. He was your go-to basketball.
What the hell was he in The Air Up There? There's like 3 white people in that movie.
He was in The Air Up There. So that's a little fun fact about old Keith Gibbs.
You're thinking of Kevin Bacon.
He was a college ball player, so he could ball for real. They challenged him to a 2-on-2, but instead, since Rimmer and Coop, as they mentioned, absolutely cannot do anything athletic, they challenged them to a game that they picked up in the hood. And no, it's not like horse.
I mean, I love it. I don't know. I feel like I still do this with my friends now. Like, at a backyard barbecue or something like that, or a backyard birthday party for one of my friends' kids. Like, we'll get a ball, and all of a sudden we made up an entire game of rules as we go. And, like, little by little, just add rules. And again, it's that purity of being a kid and just creating competition out of nothing.
Yeah, it's so good because, again, like, as dumb and silly as this movie is, it really does hammer home the point. Like, hey, sports are a thing that you're supposed to do for the love of the game, not for all the extra outside bullshit. So they're like you said, they're making up rules as they go along. Behind the meatballs, a home run. Even when they win the game, they still realize they're losers. And it gives us one of, I think, your favorite lines that you quote more than almost any other movie, which is, first we get jobs, then we get the khakis, then we get the chicks.
That's the science.
It's science. I feel like that's something else that your guidance counselor should be telling kids.
True.
So after the game, though, they realize they're kind of onto something. They start taking it a little bit more seriously. They're in their driveway, making up rules, and enter Kenny, aka Squeak, who is there to cut their gas off. And they challenge Kenny, saying, hey, you can turn our gas off if you can make this shot. Doesn't go their way, or doesn't go Kenny's way. He's got to go fetch the ball. Long story short, Kenny loses his job. Now he's got to move in with the boys.
At least a part of the team.
And that's all that matters. Back to that.
I think, Kenny Squeak plays the guy who, that group of friends that unfortunately gets dogged on all the time. I mean, it sucks, but it's a realistic scenario that happens in a lot of groups. So he's playing that character, but he's part of the group.
100%. And that's all that matters, because he just wants to be a part of something. So now that they have a squad, they got their threes, they start running neighborhood tournaments. Eventually, they're approached by Mr. Denslow to make the league official. He's like this fictitious billionaire who wants to buy the league and cut out all of the bullshit that goes on in sports and kind of create a league where anybody could play, You could be out of shape. You could be down and out. It doesn't matter. As long as you got that money jump shot, you can be a part of something real. Teams aren't allowed to move. Players aren't allowed to get traded. Everybody makes the same amount of money. On its surface, it seems like this perfect idea to hold on to what basketball was created for. And as we'll see at different parts of the movie, there are challenges in keeping it like that. But now that we're getting to the part where basketball is actually a real thing, we made it to the National Basketball League. Let's break down some of the rules, because I feel like they vaguely go over the rules like sporadically through the film, but they never just lay them out for you in one spot. So there are 2 teams, 3 players each. We have a half-court setup, free throw line's a single, top of the key is a double, 3-point line's a triple, behind the meatballs or from Steph, Dame, Trey range is a home run. There are 2 closer squares, which are bunts. Now, a bunt does not put a runner on base, but it does advance a runner. And it also counts as an out. So you're sacrificing a little there. Whatever shot is hit, the base runner takes that many bases. So if there is a man on second and the shooter hits a single, the runner on second goes to third. A missed shot is an out. Double plays can be made on a tip off a rebound, but if the offense gets a tip in off a missed tip in, they get the value of the original shot. There's no shooting from the same place twice. And on defense, 1 player goes for psych outs. What is the best psych out in the film?
It might be. I really love the Reamer showing the wife in the on the jersey when he's got he opens up half his jersey and it's showing the guy's wife and his wife naked and opens up the other half and he's behind her.
Yeah, that one that I was going back and forth between that one and at one point, and it's really dark. Squeak reads like a card that Coop and Reamer give him to this one dude, asking him if his mom's deaf. The guy says no, she's dead. Squeak continues reading and says, "Guess that's why she didn't move." And this is why I've argued that basketball has to be on the Mount Rushmore of trash talking movies.
Oh yeah, you can't even make this movie today, right?
Oh, not a chance.
Like anywhere, like you can't put it on anywhere. Like you're not straight to HBO or something like that. Not in theaters, not on Netflix, anywhere.
No, this is an independent thing that you have to launch on your own platform, and even then, whatever video service is hosting it, probably taking it down.
Right.
Now, the only reason it would get made is because Matt Stone and Trey Parker have the reputation that they're allowed to push the boundaries.
With them for sure.
But we'll get into remake stuff later on in the pod, as we usually do. Let's be patient there. Our first cameo is Real Big Fish.
Insane.
And,
what a random thing.
Well, you got to remember that, like, in this era, in the 90s movies, like, ska was like the go-to like music for some reason, for like white like comedic comedy. Like even Less Than Jake got the gig in Good Burger. For whatever reason, ska really hit around that time. It was such a random cameo, but I guess that's like when you're, because it's not like Matt Stone and Trey Parker are what they were at this point when they made the movie. So They were probably just friends with these dudes, or just really like their band, whatever the case was. And
sure,
the movie studios.
There's so many damn cameos in this movie that I don't know how they got the budget for this.
There's so many cameos, and I'll tell you exactly what the budget situation. So the other cameo, and it's not so much they're a cameo because they have multiple scenes in the film, is Al Michaels and Bob Costas as the announcers.
Right.
And Al Michaels hates Matt Stone and Trey Parker.
Yeah, that's a big story.
So at one point, Costas and Al Michaels are filming the movie. They realize that this movie is going to be atrocious. And they're kind of messing around. They only have a few more scenes, and they're just like, let's just get it done. Costas is like, hey, at least we got a good paycheck out of it. Al Michaels says, what do you mean by that? And Costas goes on to explain to him that he's getting $50,000 for the film, a lot back then. And Al Michaels realizes He's only getting 15 grand for the film. He's not happy.
I don't know how the hell did they negotiate that. Who did negotiating for this? Like
the studio, was it then? I feel like Matt Stone and Trey Parker just did everything.
They might have just it might have been them just calling up and doing it. But how did can you imagine like ESPN allowing people to be involved in a movie like this? Because I mean, Kenny Mayne is in it, Dan Patrick's in it. Like you're covering, right? Well, I mean, just
or Dale Earnhardt rather.
Right,
but not
Dale Earnhardt. But at least he's representing himself, just collecting a check. Like ESPN would never let one of their people in a movie like this.
Never. Not. I don't think anybody knew what was happening.
No, and
that blank check.
That's what it's too. And I don't think there's no way Al Michaels and Jim Nantz were on the same broadcast team at that time or same network. So I mean, at the time they had to. There's no way. How did they negotiate that? They would never allow that today.
No. There's a lot of stuff that goes into the making of this movie that makes it really difficult to replicate. So the first official game, we see Coop blow the game as he misses. Because in the Denslow Cup, he is watching Denslow choke on a hot dog. He doesn't know that. He thinks he's just choking. And we go to the locker room. And
Undozen egg night, none less.
Undozen egg night, none less. And you see the subtleties that make this movie so great where, the beers are wearing championship loser shirts and hats in the locker room as they're getting interviewed. And it's just little clever anecdotes like that really just make this film hit.
Yeah, just little things that everybody knows, and just being able to tie it into a sports joke at the same time. It's so damn funny. The tag's still on them, dangling off,
right?
And getting post-game interviews with the players who just lost the game, just lost a big one.
Squeak wants to get interviewed. Nobody wants to interview him.
Right.
Really, really good stuff. And so once Denslow dies, things start getting weird because, as we mentioned, the point of the league for Coop and Denslow was to maintain the purity of the sport. But once he dies, Coop starts getting pressure to expand the game and make it like every other sport where players can be traded. You can have clothing lines and endorsements and all of the things that, may ruin the game for a lot of people. And he has to go through this internal battle with himself about it because he's getting pressure from Reber, who's his best friend. After Remer is kind of conned by Baxter Kane. And it gives us my favorite quote from the film, which we hear twice, where Kane asks Remer, "Do you think Shaq got rich playing in Orlando?" And he got rich playing in college. Everyone knows that.
Everybody knows that. As much as he made playing in college?
Also another great cameo.
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, just sitting there.
Just chilling in the glass. The budget for this. Do
you think Kareem Abdul-Jabbar had any idea what was going on? Why is this happening?
None. I feel like the way that all of these cameos are working is the same way that I just paid Eddie Curry to do an intro for
they're
morning show, Morning Wood. Just he's got to be all right, I'm gonna read this, collect the check, get
Do you think Kareem Abdul-Jabbar has a clue that he's in this movie? Do you think he's ever seen it?
Kareem is very, very smart, so he definitely remembers it. Has he ever seen it? That's debatable.
Well, I think he is very smart, and I think that's why he wouldn't watch this movie.
Correct.
Absolutely not. No.
So Baxter blackmails Coop. He's real good movie villain. Really, really up there. You miss a good classic movie villain. I feel like we're not getting the real classic ones anymore. But he's blackmailing him to throw the Denslow Cup because if Coop doesn't win the Denslow Cup, then he loses ownership of the team, which Denslow gave him in his will. So Baxter Kane ends up blackmailing him after learning that the clothing line that Coop was pressured to start, which was funding the Dream Come True Foundation, was being run by a sweatshop, little kids.
Make-A-Wish kid jokes. Can you imagine someone making Make-A-Wish kid jokes?
Oh, the Make-A-Wish kid stuff. I mean, like, they're just going as far as they possibly can. Getting this kid hammered at the bar. Like, when they're in the hospital, they pull the cord out and he flatlines. They're doing, like, they're just going as far as they possibly can. What did they say? What was the line that one of the people say that the nurses says that he smells like? They say,
the kid smells like Robert Downey Jr.
So good. For anybody who doesn't know, Robert Downey Jr. before Iron Man, not the most stellar reputation leading in.
Not a good reputation. No, I mean, Make-A-Wish kid jokes, that's insane. Like, you can't do that today at all, coming anywhere near close. And, I mean, Jenny McCarthy, too, man. We haven't brought her up yet.
And Yasmin Bleeth, who was huge at the time. The foundation is run by Jenna, played by her. And because Coop has the hots for her, he tries to build a relationship with the Make-A-Wish kid, Joey, who is the kid who they go on, get drunk, and, you know, just complete shenanigans with the entire time. Also, some of the requests that Joey has for his Make-A-Wish, his dream come true, just big game hunting.
So random. It's just. I want to know how many ideas they went through before they settled on like those 2 or 3 that they actually said in the movie.
Yeah, I wonder what the process for the movie was for making the movie is like, because, you know, they released the documentary where they create the South Park episodes.
Yeah.
It takes them, like, they do it week by week, so I guess they could stay up on current events and whatnot. I wonder what the writing process for this movie was like. If this was an idea they had forever and they really patiently worked on it, or they literally were pitched the idea, were given a check, and were like, okay, we'll figure it out.
Pretty much. They haven't done a movie in a long time, right? When was the last movie they did? Was it World Police or whatever it is?
I think so. I think it was Team America.
Yeah.
And then they did Book of Mormon after that, which
right.
Which, not a movie, but, you know, Broadway show that
worked out.
Worked out pretty okay.
It was great.
I haven't seen it. And,
I recommend. I
really
saw it.
Want to. No, you saw it. Hopefully one day I'll be allowed to after the world returns to normal. But yeah, the Joey scene's just gold because in typical fashion, they take it way too far. But Joey ultimately saves the day because Coop has to shoot the last home run in the film, and Lazy Boy, his basketball that he makes out of an actual lazy boy, or a basketball, sorry, that he makes out of an actual lazy boy, deflates right there on the spot. And Joey made his own basketball. So Joey, the unsung hero of the movie, and Coop ultimately has that sports moment, that Reggie Jackson sports moment that everybody dreams of as a kid, hitting the game-winning homer, win the Denzel Cup, win the big game, get the championship, and you know, get that happy ending that everybody dreams of as a kid.
Yeah, I mean, that's why you play, and it was a recreation of something that him and Reamer were doing in the driveway when basketball was a small game. So to be able to do that, those are the moments you dream for and you work towards. So when you're actually, in the big moment and that happens, it just goes back to you being a little kid, and what's most important is your passion for the game, the genuineness of you loving the game. Because I think when you're actually playing the game, you're playing because you love it. It's not because of everything else.
Right. And that's the reason that you wake up at 6 a.m. every Sunday to play flag football.
Right. And I mean, it's like Tom Brady right now. I promise you Tom Brady didn't go to Tampa so he can get more money. He loves this goddamn game. He wants to show what he can do, without Belichick. LeBron James, he doesn't need the money from basketball anymore. It's not about that anymore. It's about just he loves the game. So that's, at the core, that's what's most important.
Right. He's just trying to catch that ghost. That's where he's at this point.
Right.
And it's crazy because this movie is just a big parody of sports the entire time.
Yeah. It's a micro. That's it. It's a joke movie, but it's a microcosm of what really exists. Like, this is basically, in my opinion, where Anthony Davis is. It's the difference where Anthony Davis, he cares about money and all the outside stuff right now. His focus not entirely is on winning a championship, kind of where Reamer gets to. So at the end of the day, all that stuff is good, But when you're young, but temporarily, it only lasts for so long. That outside stuff, building your own brand, building, what's all about you. At the end of the day, what drives the team is you buying in, and that success is what makes everybody survive.
100%. So now to finish it off, we're going to remake the movie 2020. We've already discussed that this would be a hard movie to get done, but because Matt Stone and Trey Parker are directing it, I feel like you can get away with it. Do you have any, your cast in mind, or you want me to go first?
I got my cast. I want to
for
come up with two, but I got my cast. I think the only way you're getting this movie made today is Coop has to be Seth Rogen.
Okay.
I think James Franco has to be Reamer. James Franco would absolutely be the, buying into superstardom and everything like that. And Jay Baruchel is going to be Squeak.
Love it.
It's the only. I think you can do it. It's going to be a different movie for sure, but I think that's the only way you do it. But Seth Rogen can play that genuine character. I think that's the way to do it.
See, I went in a pretty different direction.
Okay.
But I will say that my Squeak does fit in with the crew. I picked Michael Cera as Squeak.
All right.
But here's who I got for Coop and Reamer. Desus and Mero.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be a lot of fun.
Desus and Mero, I feel like it's time for those dudes to star in a film.
Yeah, I love that. They're great.
They have the chemistry to make it work. They know each other inside and out. They could hit all of those ticks that you want them to hit. Their comedy feels like it goes too far. It's a different kind of too far, but they're not afraid to go that too far. And it's definitely a different movie. I think they give it a different edge. But I think that the cast of both of these films works in different ways. I
think so too. I think you got to find a pairing. That pairing of people like a Vince Vaughn and Owen Wilson. Maybe not today, but maybe 10 years ago. But like that, you got to find that pairing that you've seen them before. So maybe like a Jonah Hill and Channing Tatum or something like that, and see what would happen in that regard. I think you need to start there, and and it's got to be. It's going to be rough to fit into today's world.
It is. Everything is too PC. Some for the good, some for the worse, probably. Hopefully, one day we can find some kind of middle ground so we can enjoy comedy like this once again.
I just want to see comedy movies. I mean, it's not everything's meant to be offensive. That's a different conversation. But at the end of the day, they made a lot of jokes around here, but it was all meant to be no harm.
Yeah, and it's part of the reason the movie works, because sometimes with comedy you got to push the boundaries a little bit, and you're going to cross some lines, you're going to offend some people, but that's why it's not a serious movie. It's a comedy, and it's meant to poke fun, and sometimes you're going to hit, sometimes you're going to miss. There's different audiences for a film like this, but at the end of the day, if you're walking into a Matt Stone and Trey Parker movie in the first place, you know
it's coming.
You should know what you're getting yourself into. All right, this was a fun one. Again, this is a movie that everyone should see if you're a fan of comedy.
Yeah, I mean this movie's great. I love this movie. There's so many goddamn one-liners in this movie. I don't know. I love this movie. It's really great. I think everyone should see it if they're a sports fan, because again, it's the purity of sport. It's what happens when you grow up, and it's not about just the game anymore, and all the outside noise gets involved. So it's the purity of sports to the core, and then questioning that.
Yeah, well said. That's gonna do it for this episode of Nothing But Netflix. Larry, thanks for joining. You'll be hearing from Larry again. Make sure to check out at 9 a.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday, live on Twitter, the Hardwood Herald YouTube, and Twitch. Morningwood, it's our morning NBA show where we're discussing everything going on in the bubble. We're doing it every morning for a half hour. And until then, we'll see you next time. Peace, guys.